Being able to hear like others would be a very interesting social experiment. That, like, what if someone hears a song differently than you do? Or what if someone's sensitivity to a certain sound is different from yours? And as someone with a condition that will be discussed today with hearing, to be able to hear those sounds, like maybe a song that like someone else hears, would probably change my life. And so it's important to understand each other's differences. That would probably bring us closer together. And so the human ear is important to understand how the human ear is more complex than most other sound processing organs and other species. That it allows us to process minor differences in pitch, volume, and tone. So according to the National Institute of Health, every year 2 to 3 children out of every 1,000 children are born with detectable hearing loss. So there are 3 major types of hearing loss. There is sensorineural, conductive, and mixed. And so today we'll discuss sensorineural and hearing loss. So when I was born, there were no hearing screening programs that were federally mandated, so I was not diagnosed until I was 2. But when I was diagnosed with profound sensorineural hearing loss. And so I've had lots of education on my condition through reading many books, articles, and taking lots of classes. And so I'm able to share this information with you today on how this condition affects me. And so I would like to discuss today sensorineural hearing loss by highlighting the different causes, differences between a normal ear and an ear affected by this condition, and explaining the different treatments. And so let's first talk about the differences in a normal ear and one with sensorineural hearing loss. And so most everyone knows or at least seen someone with some form of hearing loss, but not all hearing loss is the same. There are different forms of it. And so it's important to understand how a normal ear works. So according to the National Institutes of Health, there are 5 major steps to how our ear processes sound. So sound enters through the ear canal in the external part of the ear, which is the part that we can see. The eardrum receives that sound and sends vibrations to 3 small bones in the ear. Those 3 small bones work to amplify and process that sound and work to move that sound to the cochlea, which is a small organ which is snail-like and is fluid-filled. And so inside that, when the sound is received, the fluid ripples and there are small hair-like cells on the edge of it. And when those hair-like cells receive that sound against the fluid, when they move against the structure, there are pore-like channels on the structure which open to create electrical signals and process sound in the auditory nerve. But an ear with sensorineural hearing loss, they have problems at those last couple of steps where there's the hair-like cells in the auditory nerve. And they could possibly be missing, inactive, or damaged. And so when someone with sensorineural hearing loss receives sound, they process that sound completely normally until those last 2 steps. There's usually a breakdown either with the hair-like cells or the auditory nerve. And so now that we've gained an understanding of how an ear with sensorineural hearing loss is affected compared to a normal ear, we can talk about the different causes of this condition. And so it's important to understand that hearing loss affects each person differently. And so there are 4 clinically labeled degrees of sensorineural hearing loss according to the National Institutes of Health. So there's mild hearing loss, which they're able to understand normal speech but no like whispers or soft sounds. There's moderate hearing loss where there is trouble with understanding speech at a normal volume, but if you project your voice a yell, then you're able to understand they're able to understand you. Someone with severe hearing loss has trouble with understanding all speech, quiet or loud, or just normal volume. They're able to hear few loud sounds like maybe a concert or an airplane engine. And someone with profound hearing loss, which is what I have, they're not able to understand any sound. They're completely deaf. And so there are 3 major ways that someone could get hearing loss. So according to the National Institutes of Health, you can get it from birth, from underlying medical conditions, or environmental conditions. And so when someone's born with sensorineural hearing loss, they likely get it from a genetic syndrome or have a developmental issue in that inner ear, which is how I got mine. And if they get it later in life, it's likely from natural aging or exposure to loud sounds. But if someone gets it from underlying medical conditions, those are typically related to like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, like where a tumor could be pressing on the auditory nerve and that would not allow it to process sound. And so learning those different causes of sensorineural hearing loss, it's important to understand the different treatments that someone can receive. So those treatments can go from small life changes like a visual fire alarm or a vibrating alarm clock to a full-blown surgery that replaces the full sense of hearing. It's important to note that there's no treatment possible to replace the natural hearing without any assistive device like with those hair-like cells or the auditory nerve. So there are 2 major forms of treatment. So there are hearing aids and cochlear implants. So hearing aids work to only amplify the sound. They only receive sound and make it louder for that person. And so that's only helpful for those with mild or moderate sensorineural hearing loss. But cochlear implants literally restore the entire sense of hearing. And so there are 2 major parts: the external part, which has a microphone, processor, and transmitter; the internal part, which has a receiver and electrodes. So basically the sound is received by the external portion, is processed into electrical signals, which is received in the internal portion, and it sends those electrical signals to the electrode, to the brain, and so that person is able to understand sound just like a normal person would. but it's important to know that it may not restore a full normal hearing. It will restore hearing, but not to 100% like a normal person. And so it's able to provide sound for those with profound or severe sensorineural hearing loss. So from this information I presented today, sensorineural hearing loss is caused by a number of factors and can affect many people in many different ways. And so that provides challenges and specific treatments for every person, that not all treatments are perfect, but it's important to know that treatments are on the cutting edge of technological innovation, and that treatments are getting better every day, so everyone's condition can be made to their own, everyone's treatment can be made to their own specifications. And so knowing this information that I've taught you guys today is important to be able to empathize with those that suffer from this condition and appreciate our differences and our different struggles.